Okay, so this is just going to serve as kind of a quick overview of what we talked about in class on Monday the 24th, just with some helpful hints as far as actually creating your custom cam goes. So a few things here. Again, make sure you read the directions through here. Everything is in here as far as what you would need to do. Your cam design graph paper, if you have a printer, this is going to be a lot easier to do if you print that off. If not, open that up and do that just on your own piece of paper. Make the graphs yourself. It really is necessary to have those graphs to get the actual motion that you want. Now, the first thing is to think about what motion do you actually want to have when you make your automata. Do you want it to? Sorry, putting this up on the screen so you can see me. When you turn that crank, what do you want to actually happen to the thing on the top? For one turn of the crank, what's going to happen? Is it going to go kind of up slowly and then go down really fast? Is it going to, what is it going to do? So think about that, because you really need to know what you want before it starts. So if we take a look at the graph paper here, I'm going to make this full screen. What I'm looking for, I need a pen. What I'm going to try to do here is to create the motion that I want. Now, at the bottom of this page, there are some requirements. Obviously, stay within those dotted lines. They're there for a reason. But the second one here, don't gain more than 1 inch per 90 degrees. If it is, your cam is going to be too steep to make it actually turn. You've got to have a cam that is possible to turn when you do this. So you have a lot of room, but really, stay within about 1 inch. Moving up and down the cam more than 1 inch at a time is really going to be too much for this project to handle. So if I wanted to have something, maybe I'm going to have it go kind of, draw with touch. There we go. I'm going to want it to kind of go up gradually over the course of 90 degrees and then kind of drop fast, and then up gradually and then drop fast, and then up gradually and then drop fast. That's what I'm going to have mine do. One of the things you have to keep in mind is these are circular, so they do have to start and end at the same point, just so you know that has to happen. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at kind of these key points here: 0, 30, 60, 90, 120, all the 30 degree points. And I'm going to take those down and plot them on this polar graph. If you've never used a polar graph before, just think of it like you've got your degrees, and then the radius of your circle is how far you are away from it. So here, if I'm plotting 0 degrees at 1.5 inches, where you actually put 0 doesn't matter. I'm just going to make it here. I know that's not typically where you do it, but we'll make that 0 degrees. And at 0 degrees, we're at 1.5 inches. So each of these marks going out is 1/2 inch. So there is, come on, let me draw. Draw with touch, marker. Why won't it let me draw? There's our first point. At 30 degrees, it looks like we're still there. So these go every 15, so 30 is actually right here. So I'll put it there. At 60 degrees, I'm at 1.75 or so that's maybe about right there. You don't have to be exact, but if you're halfway between 2 lines on this, you're halfway between 2 lines on this. At 90 degrees, we're up at 2.5, so that is right here. At 120 degrees, we're back at 0. Or not 0, 1.5, which is right there. So you can see if I kind of trace this line out, what's happening is as I go up, it's pretty steep or pretty shallow, but then it kind of drops off really fast. And I'm just going to have that kind of shape repeat every 30 degrees or so. And so, that took me for 120. And so I'll do the exact same thing. I'll go, where am I at here? So at 150, we'll kind of even that out. I want it to be more like the first one. So at 150, we'll put it back at 1.5. So that's right there. At 180, we'll put it at 1.5. One point there. Right there. Or did I do too many? Yeah, I did too many. That one should have been there. And then there. And then drop all the way back down. So again, kind of rising slowly and then drop. And then I'll keep going around. I'm just plotting these points that I've created here. 0, 0, up. And 0, 0, 1.5, 1.5, rising. And then a quick drop. Now that looks not so great, but you can do better because you're not drawing with a mouse. I wanted to go up to 2.5 anyway. Anyway, that looks terrible. Do better on yours because you can draw with a pencil. That's why you want to print these out. Anyway, what you're going to do from there now is go to Onshape, and your job is going to be to make that shape. Now, this is a pretty free-form shape, so you can kind of, just tweak it to make it how you want. One of the tools that I really like to use for this is the Spline Tool. What that will do is it will actually follow points that you create. And so what you can do is you can actually go in and plot points. Where are we at here? And we can plot these points around our graph to get a pretty accurate look at our graph. We've also got some ability here to do things like use patterning tools and things like that if we wanted to. If I'm really trying to make this thing look like it's 3 of the exact same thing, I can do that. But I'm going to go ahead and plot these points here at 0 degrees straight up. I'm at 1.5. So what I can do is I can just take a point straight up, stick it on the graph, and then dimension from that point to the origin as 1.5 inches. And then I can go ahead and go back to my picture here. I can see, here at 90 degrees, I was at 2.5 inches. So I can go back here, plot a point way over here, and I can dimension from that point to the origin 2.5 inches. And I can put points in the middle there. It's a little hard to get the angles. If you want the angles, you can use some construction lines, but you can kind of play around with putting points in there. I said the only way I know to get angles for sure is to use construction lines to all of them. And then when you go to dimension, you can dimension between those construction lines and say that should be 30 degrees between those two. And you can do that for all of them. If you want to get exact points, you can do that. But I would make sure you're using construction lines. You can turn them to construction lines after you're done. Just right-clicking on them with nothing else selected and hitting construction. Construction. There we go. And so if you dimension between two lines, you can get an angle like that, 30 degrees, 30 degrees, which means the last one will be 30. And then you can go ahead and put a dimension like this, and it'll even let you go sideways like that. So I can do 1.5, and I can say that this one should have been 1.75. And so I've got those points. Now what I can do is I can just use a spline to connect these all. And the spline tool, what it does is it just creates a nice uniform shape, as good as it possibly can, that matches all of the points that you have. If I'm looking at this point, you can also dimension directly to spline points as well. If that should have been 1.5 now. I can dimension directly to that point. I can put a construction line on it to make sure that it stays 30 degrees from the first one. Now this can get a little bit messy if you want to keep getting very, very particular about your shape. But the more you play around with it, the more you get kind of what you want out of this whole thing. So that's kind of up to you. And you can play around with a few different things if you want. A couple other things that you can then do is you can use patterning tools. So you've got circular patterns. You can just take that whole thing and pattern it around your circle 3 times. Maybe. And then you can see those points have been patterned now. So now I can go through with my spline tool and continue selecting those. Once you get to 1, it makes it a little bit easier to do the rest. And then when you get to the end of the spline tool, just double click and you've got your general shape there. It's not perfect. You can always grab and drag and move things around. You can see there I did a pretty poor job of actually getting them connected, but I can reconnect those like that. When it's actually connected, you will see that it makes that solid graph in the middle where it turns darker in the middle. Obviously, I am not connected at this point. Not sure why not. But that's fun stuff to play around with. Eventually, you'll get it to the point where you can extrude that shape, and then you're going to be in pretty good shape. But that's kind of one way to do it. If that doesn't work out for you, one thing you can do is to make this one continuous spline. That will work usually a little bit better. But no guarantees on the spline thing. You can always just try to get away with it by going back over it with one big spline once you're pretty happy. Or you can kind of go a little bit more freeform and just get the general shape that you want. You see there it went, and now it's connected because I did it as one big spline. So that's probably a better way to go. You're going to want to put a hole in the middle, and then you can go ahead and extrude it to 0.25 inches. You see that's my custom cam shape right there. You could also feel free to try to use arcs and lines and things like that. But the spline tool will make it nice and kind of uniform the whole way around. And it'll be nice and smooth. So you'll know you're kind of getting the shape that you want there. But give that a shot, play around with it. It's not going to be perfectly matched to the shape you have probably, but eventually you'll get a shape that you're more or less happy with. Remember, you can use things like symmetry as well if you want to try that, add that out. But just get it connected there and you should be good to go.